Hi, Grandma here, and I'm reading The Midwife's Apprentice, and I'll be beginning with chapter 5. Well, the main character of the book has a lot of names now. She started out as Brat, and then she became Beetle, named for being a dung beetle, and Jane has added a couple of more. Brainless Bat, Clodpole, Good for Nothing. So it's hard to have good self-esteem and confidence when those are your names. So we're reading the next chapter called The Merchant, chapter 5. Now it was high summer with the hay drying in the fields and all the village praying for the rain to hold off until the grain was safely cut and stored away for winter. The midwife, needing to replenish her stores of leather flasks, nutmeg, pepper, and the water in which a murderer had washed his hands, made plans to attend the St. Swithin's Day fair at Gobnet-under-Green. Beetle had been to fairs, but only to beg a turnip or some pig bones for a stew, and never had her belly been full enough for her to lift her head and look around. She dearly longed to accompany the midwife, but still being brainless Brat, she was afraid to ask. And so the day before the midwife's departure, Jane set Beetle a score of tasks to accomplish in her absence and made ready to leave without the girl. Beetle knew this was an important journey, for the midwife soaked herself in the mill pond, dried her hair in the sun, and sharpened the pleats in her best wimple. She sang to herself as she worked, a timeless tune that Beetle supposed a witch's spell until she recognized it as Summer is a-Comin' In, sung by someone who lacked the practice and the heart and the sweetness to sing. On her way back to the cottage, laden with newly washed clothes to spread in the sun, the midwife tripped over Walter the blacksmith's second-best pig and fell. Left leg twisted beneath her. Her furious oaths made Beetle truly fear she was a witch, for only someone who had truck with the devil would know such words. Although bellowing that Beetle was stupid as a woodchuck and clumsy as a donkey in a dress, the midwife allowed the girl to help her into the cottage and onto her straw bed. "Broken, by God's whiskers, broken," she moaned, feeling her ankle, and she set about telling Beetle how to pack the bone-set herbs and wrap the rags around the limb. Beetle feared this meant that because the midwife could not walk, she could not work, and thus would need Beetle's help no longer. Actually, it meant that Beetle was to go to St. Swithin's Day fair in the midwife's place. The joy in Beetle's heart warmed her insides and lit her face, even though the midwife's ranting about lack of wit and dire consequences if she were to lose the silver pennies or spend too much or come home with the wrong things. The blazing sun of St. Swithin's morning dried the hay, gladdened the villagers, and saw Beetle on her way to Gobnet-under-Green with 4 silver pennies, an onion, and a hunk of bread, and a cheerful heart. To get to Gobnet-under-Green, Beetle took the road north that followed the river, passed the mill, turned east at Stephen the Fletcher's cottage, cut across the abbey fields ablaze with the violet-blue flowers of the flax, turned north again at Bury on the Birkenhead, then meandered easterly and northerly until it ended in the glory that was the St. Swithin's Day fair in the market square of Gobnet-under-Green. Beetle was too excited to eat along the way, so she gave her bread and onion to a hungry goat that then followed her near all the way to Gobnet. When she arrived at the fair, she did not know whether her lightheadedness was from hunger in the sun or the thrill of being in the midst of such gaiety and color, and she did not care. She passed through the forest of bright booths with flags and pennants flying, offering for sale every manner of wondrous thing. Copper kettles, rubies and pearls, ivory tusks from mysterious animals, cinnamon and ginger from faraway lands, tin from Cornwall, and bright green woolen cloth from Lincoln. She laughed at the puppets, wondered at the soothsayers, applauded the singers, and cheered for the racing horses. Her nostrils quivered at the smells of roasting meats and fresh hot bread and pies stuffed with pork and raisins, but her gut still trembled with excitement, and she was content just to smell. As forenoon gave way to midday, Beetle wandered the fairgrounds. As midday turned to late afternoon, she remembered why she was there. She sniffed all the spices for free before buying nutmeg and pepper. The hangman was doing a brisk trade in murderer's wash water, but Beetle was at last able to secure a bottle. At the end of the street of the cup makers, Beetle was told just before the Church of Saints Digad and Vigor she could find the best prices on leather flasks, and so she did. The merchant's booth was also filled with sundry other wares for wondering at: shiny brass needles, ribbons of red and lavender, copper spoons and bronze knives, boots of fine red leather with embroidery on the toes, and combs of polished wood and ivory. Beetle had never used more than her fingers to comb the burrs and thistles from her hair, and probably could have lived her whole life doing so. But on one of those combs, between the two rows of teeth, was carved a sleeping cat. He looked so much like the cat Beetle knew that she ached to own it. For long minutes she held the comb, looked at it this way and that, smelled the fragrant wood and admired the sleeping cat. Then with a great sigh she put it down and turned to bargain with the merchant for the flasks. Although, or perhaps because she was new at the bargaining game, Beetle handed it with such a charming solemnity that the merchant took a fancy to the skinny young thing, and with a broad wink threw the comb with the cat into the pack with the flasks. "Comb those long curls till they shine, girl, and sure you'll have a lover before nightfall." Another wink, and the merchant turned to his next customer. The comb was hers. Beetle stood breathless for fear someone would snatch it back. Never had she owned anything except for her raggedy clothes and occasional turnips, and now the comb with the cat was hers. The wink and the comment about her curls, though Beetle didn't know it, were also gifts from the generous merchant, and they nestled into Beetle's heart and stayed there. Beetle settled the pack on her back and started for the village. In front of the Church of Saints Digad and Vigor, she stopped to pull the comb through her hair. Curls. Were these tangles curls? Beetle leaned over the horse trough and examined her hair in the still water. Definitely curls, surrounding a thin little face with big eyes and a pointed chin. Big nose and big ears and the curliest hair at the fair. "This is me, then, Beetle," she said, and looked again. "Alice! Hey, Alice, I need you," said a man pulling at Beetle's sleeve. She looked about for this Alice. "Alice here, what do they say?" he said, thrusting a piece of leather with marks on it under her Beetle's eyes. She blinked and looked at him. "Who is Alice?" "Oh, don't be funny, Alice. These here marks are supposed to show my winnings on the horse race, and I need you to read them to be sure Cobb the groom is not cheating me." "What does it say?" "I'm not Alice." "Course you are." The man leaned over and peered closely into Beetle's face. "Wait," he shouted, spraying her with spit. "You're not Alice." "You look like Alice. Where's Alice? Alice!" And off he went to find Alice to make sure Cobb the groom was not cheating him on the horse race. Beetle stood perfectly still. What a day! She had been winked at, complimented, given a gift, and now mistaken for the mysterious Alice who could read. Did she look like someone who could read? She leaned over and watched her face in the water again. "This face," she said, "could belong to someone who can read, and has curls, and could have a lover before nightfall. And this is me, Beetle." She stopped. Beetle was no name for a person, no name for someone who looked like she could read. Frowning, she thought a minute, and then her face shone as though a torch were fired inside her. Alice, she breathed. Alice sounded clean and friendly and smart. You could love someone named Alice. She looked back at the face in the water. This then is me, Alice. It was right. So the newly called Alice shifted the pack on her shoulders, and with her head back and bare feet solid on the ground, she headed back to the midwife's cottage and never noticed when it grew cool and dark, for the heat and light within her. Well, I'm happy to see that she has gotten some self-confidence, and sometimes that's all it takes is a friendly comment to someone to really boost their day. Hope you're having a good day. Bye-bye.